Before cinematic universes and franchise Bibles, networks had a far simpler weapon for launching new shows: the backdoor pilot. You're watching your favorite series, everything feels familiar, and suddenly a new character, a new setting, or a new tone sneaks in. It's a stealth test. If viewers lean in, the network knows they've got something. The method thrived in the 3-network era because it leveraged a built-in audience, recycled sets and crews, and crucially matched the parent show's vibe closely enough to feel seamless while still promising a distinct engine. When it clicked, you didn't just get a spin-off, you got a show with legs because its premise had been proven inside the safety of a hit. In this episode, we're revisiting 8 textbook wins from the 70s through the early 2000s to see exactly why they worked and what today's revivals could learn from them. We'll also look at one famous counterexample where the hook didn't transfer, because the backdoor pilot is only as strong as the promise it can carry on its own. If you're into retro TV deep cuts and smart storytelling breakdowns, tap like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell, then let's dive into the countdown. 10. Happy Days piloted Laverne Shirley. Sometimes lightning is just 2 characters walking through the door. When Laverne DeFazio and Shirley Feeney crash Fonzie's date night on Happy Days, they don't feel like guest stars. They feel inevitable. The energy is immediate. Blue-collar best friends with big dreams. Louder than life and absolutely comfortable stealing scenes from anyone, even the Fonz. The planted appearance gave audiences a crystal-clear premise in minutes. 2 Milwaukee bottle cappers trying to make it, leaning on friendship, hustle, and a comic optimism that felt working class and warm. Crucially, the tone matched Happy Days nostalgia, but the perspective flipped from teen boys hanging at Arnold's to 2 independent women navigating jobs, love, and rent. That shift made stories feel new. The backdoor worked because viewers could already see the show. Apartment hijinks, workplace bits, physical comedy, and the friendship as the engine. By the time Laverne and Shirley premiered, the audience wasn't trying something risky. They were following characters they already loved into a space that let them lead. And because the pilot didn't overcomplicate the premise, the series could scale. More supporting oddballs, music stings, and blue-collar set pieces that delivered comfort laughs without losing character drive. And if instant chemistry can sell a premise in one scene, our next example proves that sometimes a single performer sells the entire universe. 9. Happy Days also created Mork and Mindy. If Laverne and Shirley proved premise clarity, Mork and Mindy proved star power. The Happy Days episode My Favorite Orkin is a tonal curveball, an alien in a leather jacket universe, but Robin Williams explodes the frame. His improv is so electric the episode was re-aired as a dream to integrate the weirdness. Instead of breaking the world, it opened a door. The genius of the backdoor here wasn't seamless tone, it was testing whether Williams' comic velocity could carry its own logic. It could. Mork and Mindy rerouted that energy in late 70s Boulder with a human anchor. Mindy translating Mork's outsider innocence into weekly fish-out-of-water stories. The connective tissue from Happy Days wasn't continuity, it was permission. Audiences saw Williams work inside a familiar container and said, "We'll follow him anywhere." The follow-through mattered. The new show wrapped that energy in gentle heart and small-stakes humanity, letting Williams riff while preserving emotional grounding. That balance, an elastic clown with a steady scene partner, became the series' renewable fuel. But a backdoor pilot doesn't have to mirror its parent. Sometimes it argues with it, loudly, which brings us to a spin-off that turned ideological friction into its fuel. 8. All in the Family. To Maude. Backdoor pilots don't have to echo their parents, they can debate them. Enter Maude Findlay, Edith's cousin, sharp-tongued, unapologetically liberal, and the immovable object to Archie Bunker's bluster. Her appearance in All in the Family is a thesis disguised as a guest spot. What if the new show lets the counterpoint be the protagonist? That's exactly what Maude did. Same Lear DNA, same living room realism, but a different moral center and a new set of social battles. The spin-off worked because the backdoor episode didn't just introduce a character, it introduced a worldview. Viewers already knew what Maude stood for: women's autonomy, class and generational clashes, the right to speak loudly and pay the consequences. The audience didn't need orientation when her own show premiered. The stakes and style were baked in. It's a masterclass in spin-off by opposition. Use the parent show to define the friction, then let the new series live where that friction is the point, not the exception. The Planted Hour also proved Maude could carry both barbed comedy and sincere domestic drama, giving writers room to tackle hot-button plots without losing laughs. And once you've proved a worldview can carry a show, the next trick is proving momentum. Characters on the move, heading somewhere new. 7. All in the Family also led to the Jeffersons. George and Louise Jefferson begin as neighbors seen through Archie's eyes, but the backdoor groundwork does something clever. It treats their success as a trajectory. The Jeffersons isn't just more of the neighbors, it's moving on up to a new setting that generates stories. Race, class, aspiration, and the comedy of status. Their guest appearances established personalities and audience affection, but the planted moments seeded motion. A dry cleaning business that's growing, a marriage with spark, a son navigating generational shifts. When the series launches, the engine is already humming. Changing the address from Queens to a deluxe apartment in the sky instantly retools the narrative. Do old attitudes keep up with new money? Can pride and progress coexist? The Backdoor pilot worked because it set up a life change we wanted to watch unfold. The Jeffersons used the parent show's familiarity to hand off to a setting where the couple's ambitions, identity, and conflicts could finally take center stage. That upward mobility premise also opened doors for rich secondary characters, from neighbors to household staff, multiplying comedic friction while picturing Black prosperity rarely seen on TV then. Momentum is great, but so is clarity. Next up, an ensemble that mapped itself in one sitting. 6. Diff'rent Strokes into the Facts of Life. A great Backdoor pilot lays out the ensemble like a map you can memorize in one sitting. The girls' school tucked into Diff'rent Strokes does exactly that. Mrs. Garrett isn't just visiting, she's needed. At Eastland School, she becomes the adult glue binding a cluster of mismatched teens whose personalities clash in funny, revealing ways. The setting is contained, the stakes are intimate, and the series engine is obvious. Every week the same dorm, the same girls, a new problem, and Mrs. Garrett guiding with tough love. Because the parent show is already warm and kid-centric, the tone transfers cleanly. Importantly, the Backdoor pilot doesn't oversell, it proves the chemistry and lets the audience fill in the rest. Sports day disasters, exam panic, social cliques, first heartbreak. By the time the Facts of Life debuts, viewers aren't testing whether the idea works. They're choosing which girl they relate to most and showing up to see who they'll become. The premise's containment kept budgets sane, while character growth kept seasons fresh, a classic small box big heart strategy. But clarity doesn't always arrive perfect the first time. Sometimes you test the feeling, then fix the fit. 5. The Golden Girls into Empty Nest. Not every Backdoor pilot arrives fully formed, and that's the point. The Golden Girls aired an episode titled Empty Nest that sampled the theme of middle-aged loneliness and neighborly connection. The initial configuration didn't go to series, but the lesson did. There was audience appetite for a companion piece exploring later life transitions with humor and heart. Empty Nest arrived recast and reframed around Dr. Harry Weston and his adult daughters, a family comedy drama that still felt spiritually adjacent to the girls. The Backdoor effort gave the network data. Tone works, theme resonates, specific casting and focus need adjustment. That willingness to iterate, treating the planted episode as a rough draft, not sacred text, is why the spin-off ultimately found its lane. The takeaway for today's revivals is huge. Test a vibe and world, then reshape the details without losing the promise audiences already endorsed. It's also a reminder that audiences forgive retooling when the emotional promise stays intact. Connection, caretaking, and the bittersweet comedy of starting over. And if iteration refines tone, our next handoff shows how to transfer a whole format. 4. Jake and the Fat Man turned into Diagnosis Murder. Procedurals love a clean handoff, and this one's textbook. Dr. Mark Sloan shows up in Jake and the Fat Man and proves two things in minutes. He's observant enough to crack cases and charming enough to make Doctor Solves crimes feel like an irresistible weekly ritual. The planted appearance borrows the parent show's case of the week muscle, so viewers already understand the rhythm: crime, clue, twist, resolution. But the pivot is elegant. Move the center of gravity from prosecutors to a medical sleuth, and suddenly hospitals, forensics, and family dynamics become the playground. The Backdoor pilot works because it demonstrates format transfer, same puzzle satisfaction, new toolkit and tone. By the time Diagnosis Murder launches, audiences aren't being sold an experiment, they're re-engaging with a structure they trust, filtered through Dick Van Dyke's warmth and wit. It's comfort TV with a fresh angle, proven on someone else's dime and time. Just as important, the planted hour hints at a flexible formula: guest stars, stunt mysteries, and cozy capers that could scale for syndication. Speaking of fresh angles, what if a guest character is so compelling she redefines the brand? 3. Hercules. The legendary journeys led to Xena Warrior Princess. Backdoor arcs are the deluxe version of the tactic. and Xena's 3-episode run inside Hercules is the gold standard. She enters as an antagonist, dangerous, morally ambiguous, visually iconic, and then pivots toward anti-hero with a code all her own. Those installments do heavy lifting. They showcase choreography, world building, supporting relationships, and a tone that skews darker and more mythic than Hercules without breaking the syndicated adventure mold. By the time Xena headlines, the audience already knows the why. Redemption, agency, and power reclaimed. The Backdoor pilot succeeds because it proves this lead can carry fundamentally different stories, female-fronted quests, moral gray zones, emotionally weighty arcs, while still living in a compatible universe. It's not more Hercules. It's a parallel epic that expands the brand and its audience, turning a guest star into an icon whose silhouette and battle cry sell the show before the title card does. Crucially, the Backdoor arc shows stunt scale and serialized stakes, evidence the spin-off can do both Monster of the Week and Myth arc payoffs. And if Xena shows how to expand a universe sideways, our next example shows how to pivot a brand forward. 2. Jag into NCIS. Here's how to evolve a brand without cloning it. JAG's 2-parter Ice Queen / Meltdown plants the Naval Criminal Investigative Service inside a legal drama, instantly reframing the Navy world from courtrooms to crime scenes. The handoff is smart. Keep the military protocol and chain of command texture, but replace legal briefs with field work, lab analysis, and a team dynamic built on quirks and friction. Gibbs' stoicism, Donoso's charm, Abby's lab rat exuberance. The Backdoor works because it demonstrates adjacency. Same ecosystem, new promise. Viewers get a taste of how cases start, how evidence sings, how personalities collide under pressure. Most importantly, the planted episode feels like a week of the new show. Pacing, tone, even the banter. So the premiere plays like episode 2. It's a final era example that still follows the classic rules. Use a hit's credibility to prove a fresh engine, then let the spin-off drive somewhere your parent series never could. The episode also sketches a broader canvas. Other agencies, inter-service politics, signaling longevity and crossovers baked into the concept. Of course, franchises can also hand the baton to themselves, provided they change the dial. 1. Beverly Hills, 90210, Melrose Place. Of course, you can also pass the baton with a romantic crossover instead of a lab coat. 90210 seeded Melrose Place by introducing Jake Hansen, older, rough around the edges, and just outside the Beverly Hills bubble, then letting viewers follow him into a very different Los Angeles. The planted arc does 3 elegant things at once. It uses a familiar face, Kelly, as the bridge. It teases a new social ecosystem, young adults grinding to make rent rather than teens cruising Beverly Hills. And it showcases the new show's beating heart, an intimate courtyard apartment where lives constantly collide. That's the Backdoor magic. Give us a tangible place and an ensemble promise we can picture instantly. Stylistically, it stays in the Fox primetime soap lane, romance, ambition, secrets. But the temperature shifts from high school melodrama to 20-something survival, with jobs, roommates, and messy adulthood driving the weekly engine. Because the crossover feels like a week in the new world. New rhythms, older stakes. The Melrose premiere plays like episode 2, not a cold start. The lesson for modern revivals is evergreen. You don't need a giant mythology to spin off. A grounded setting with organic character traffic can generate endless story if the doorway in is emotionally clear. But not every planted hour clears the bar. Our last stop is a caution sign. Our last stop is a caution sign. And one that failed? The Office to the Farm. The Office taught us that its magic lived in ensemble chemistry. The push-pull between Michael's chaos and Jim Pam's heart. The mundanity of Scranton made mythic by small stakes and documentary timing. The Farm, intended as a Dwight-centric Backdoor pilot, tries to extract one flavor, rural shrewd absurdity, and scale it into a full meal. On paper, it's distinct. A beat farm, eccentric relatives, an oddball tonal pocket. But the planted episode reveals the cracks. The premise is narrow, leaning on quirks rather than a broad, relatable engine. The tone doesn't harmonize with the parent show so much as detach from it. And the ensemble around Dwight isn't instantly graspable the way a great Backdoor pilot's cast needs to be. Instead of I can see 100 episodes, you get I can see a sketch. The lesson stings but stands. If your parent's spell is ensemble alchemy, isolating one element may leave you with fumes, not fuel. So what should today's revivals take away from all this? Conclusion. What today's revivals could learn. The best Backdoor pilots sold a distinct promise in one sitting. A character who can carry different stories. A setting that generates conflicts on contact, or a tonal shift that makes the familiar feel new. They weren't stealth ads. They were proof of concepts that respected the audience's time. Modern revivals could absolutely borrow the playbook. Introduce a potential lead inside a compatible hit, but make the planted hour function as a real story with its own stakes. Use it to test casting chemistry, world texture, and whether viewers can sketch the ensemble after one watch. If it lands, iterate. Don't be precious about the rough draft. If it doesn't, take the note and move on. The Backdoor pilot is a lost art only if we stop practicing it. If you dug this breakdown, drop a like, hit subscribe, and tell us in the comments which current show should smuggle a Backdoor pilot next, and what promise it would need to make to earn your time.